Hey friends, welcome to Three Generations. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. Feel free to subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff. We would love it if you want to, but you don't have to, obviously. Um, but anyhow, yesterday we were very blessed and honored to have Solomon, a 6-year-old, come and join us and go around and visit the farm. He came. His grandparents came with him. Well, that's the way I'm going to describe it because he is a faithful follower of us on YouTube. He is loving it from what I understand, and he knows all the details. He knows all about the farm, and he would want to go see this thing and then go see that one, and just a very smart 6-year-old, very very bright and very detail oriented, and yeah, just a delight. And so, Solomon, thank you for coming and visiting us. We had so much fun, and I hope you've been able to eat the egg we sent home with you that you got to gather from the chickens, and you got to hold Houdini, our renegade chicken, and we caught him. He was out running around, and we caught him between all of us. We caught him, I think, twice. And Solomon, at first, was a little scared to pet Houdini, but eventually he did, and I think that was a good experience for Solomon. So anyhow, thank you so much, Solomon. You blessed our day, and you were such an honor and such a delight to have with us. So anyhow, today the video I'm going to talk a little bit about where I came from, a little bit about where Kendra came from, and then we will take you to a museum along with us, and I'll show you some of the footage from that museum that happened back in November. It's the Frontier Culture Museum in Staunton, Virginia. It is a living history museum where they have gotten farms from various places in Europe, one from Africa, and then various ones from early American history after the Europeans have arrived here. And then there's also an indigenous Native American area too, and they call that Eastern Woodland Indian area. And that's the reason we were there. They had Native American History Day there. This would have been November, about a month ago, where they had various Native Americans there, and there was also a European a gentleman who represented the frontier trapper person who would trap and sell and trade, probably more trade furs with Native Americans. And so it was for Kendra and I, it was a whole lot of fun, and for me it was really exciting. So let me start by saying a little bit where I came from and how I became interested in Native Americans, and that goes back to I'm a Mennonite. I grew up a Mennonite, and I continue to be a Mennonite. And at a fairly young age, I don't know how old, but let's just say around 10 or so, I started having an understanding of the Anabaptists back in the 1600s in Europe, and a little bit about what happened to them there and how they were considered heretics by both the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and the government, which was intertied with the Catholicism and all that. And because of that, being seen as a heretic, they were persecuted greatly. They were, the worst case scenario, they were beheaded or burned at the stake. Their tongues were often taken out. They were just horrific situations for the Anabaptists back then. And as a, an early teen, I equated being the part of my history that was horrific, where my family and my church history, the part of that was horrific, I equated with Native Americans. And so we didn't have a TV when I was younger, but we would go to my grandparents near Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and I was from Ohio, um, and my grandpa liked the cowboy and Indian shows, and so on TV. And so as a kid, it was very fascinating because we didn't see that at home. And he was very, very, he was an alcoholic, and he didn't have much of an education. He couldn't write his own name, and an X was his name for like a signature if he needed to sign something. And he always rooted for the cowboys, the European-looking people. And from that process, I started, in my mind and I wouldn't say it out loud, but I rooted for the Native Americans, even though all these shows were done from a European standpoint, and there was nothing on those shows that would give you any indication that Native Americans were real people with real feelings or anything. But from that, I became very entrenched in feeling that Native Americans were a persecuted people, even though I didn't have any understanding of the Trail of Tears at that point. I didn't know nothing, but I felt like there was an infinity for me because of where my background was. I felt an infinity for the Native Americans. And so that gives you a little flavor on, I've even done videos on Native Americans and told stories on video about that. Not that I told them, but people I'd interview with Native Americans that I've interviewed would tell their stories and their history and their people story. My wife Kendra grew up near Kansas City, Missouri, and her blood father, which she only grew up with him for the first couple years of her life, and then her parents got a divorce, and then she ended up with a stepfather and a step family situation. But as she got older, she had been told that she had some Native American blood in her, which probably is not that unusual in the Midwest. I'm sure that happens a lot. We had understood for a while that it was Kiowa blood, but then as she got older, and I'm not sure how that all transpired, whether it was through some family members, she eventually found out she was of Cherokee descent out of Oklahoma. So it would have been the Cherokee, the Eastern, I guess, I don't know, they call them Eastern Band, maybe from North Carolina, that area, who would have been driven the couple thousand miles or whatever, 1,000 miles across the country in the dead of winter, and many lost their lives to Oklahoma. So she would have come also from a persecuted background. And in more recent history now, our one daughter, the one who lives here in Virginia that invited us onto this farm, she has become very interested in her Cherokee background, and Kendra and Hannah take Cherokee classes online. They're working towards getting their citizenship within the Cherokee Nation out of Oklahoma. They have enough, the bloodline is close enough that they can do that. So that's one of their goals, is to become members of that group. So that's a little bit about Kendra and I, and how we have interest in the Native American story. And so when I think Hannah had found out that they were having the Native American Day there. They couldn't join us because they were probably somewhere else in Pennsylvania or somewhere. So Kendra and I went for Native American Day at the museum, and I absolutely loved it. It was incredible. It was fun to just be there and hear these various people talk and describe what life was like back in early American history, and to see the various things that they were portraying and showing. So anyhow, that's the video for today, and I will show you some of that footage. So, hey, thanks for joining, and have a wonderful day. May you be blessed. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Museum set up, our roadway is your water source.
Ah, interesting.
So as you go from Germany to here, you're crossing the ocean.
Shell. And you just you don't get a lot of mileage out of it, but that's about how much you get out of one burn.
Little at a time.
Cool.
Yep.
They could be using shells, they could be using iron tools.
Yeah.
Just
Really don't have anything I don't want.
Except.
Animal skins. And the animal skins, that's money. And in this period of history, the natural resources are natural resources. We don't have any synthetics. And so everything that is made has got to have its primary source to be able to be utilized. And in this function right here, these are the things which would say you would find in Jamestown. These are the things you would find at Yorktown. These are the things you would find in London, in Edinburgh. This is are the products of Europe, which by this time I am going to bear hide such as this to the native people. This is a nice day to put this on and wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you.
Yeah. Well, now to me, I would look at it. I would think, only a
Cold.
savage would do that.
Oh, oh, cold.
You know.
Can we touch it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
As a, do you mean as a fur trader, you would not?
I'm sorry.
As a fur trader, you would see that as something only the savages.
Oh yeah, that's money.
I portray 18th century. Can you lower for just a little bit, please? I portray 18th century Cherokee.
Cool.
Right? My buddy from Eastern Band, Cherokee. I don't know if he'll be here later or not. His car broke down on the way here from his res over in Cherokee, North Carolina. I appreciate it so much, man. Thank you so much. I just bought these. These are expensive silver ear wheels, and I wanted to rock them today. I'm excited about appreciate it so much, miss.
So we're giving these European traders, English traders, most of the animal skins, because deer have got draped around me. The most valuable is the beaver hide. That is the number one
Yes.
trade. All the old tricorners, the black hat my stepdad was wearing. That's
Oh,
made
was
out
that your stepdad? It was
yeah, that's
just
my
here?
stepdad.
I like him.
He's a good piece. That hat he was wearing, that black hat, it's made out of beaver felts, which is just comes from the fur. It doesn't come from the skin. Made in the felting process.
I wouldn't have known that beaver would felt. I mean, wool
yeah,
is easy to felt.
Absolutely. All of this, especially when you get deep in here,
Yeah.
it's very soft.
Ah, so you can
which,
worry it a little bit to make it felt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's the chemicals and all to keep it together, as well as they would have like a type of cardboard back then. If you've ever heard the term the Mad Hatter, which is why a lot of kids think Willy Wonka or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I say no,
Alice in
I'm not talking about
Wonderland.
Willy Wonka or Al Capone. So no, the Mad Hatter refers to the person who was making hats, because it's a very dangerous process. You've got alum and ammonia and mercury all mixed up in this vat. He's mixing up this beaver fur. And that's the guy in the 17th century. He's walking around the city talking to himself. Well, he's gone crazy because he's been inhaling all the fumes
Wow.
and that mercury and everything else. then you get the term the Mad Hatter.
There were plenty of those back then because between the years of 1580 to around like 1820, 1830, no European gentleman would want to be caught out in the streets without his beaver fur felt hat. All the rage. So that would
So they
probably
pay
be the
for it.
Oh yeah, it was a primary headwear for most European gentlemen in popular fashion until the silk hat would replace it by the early to mid 19th century. So this was the high commodity of the fur trade.
Wonder what they knew when they were, if they knew what they were giving up to make money.
Have so much of it, so to extend it and add other things into it allows you to change the flavor and get more out of the corn and the acorn flour. So it's extended to acorn.
It's so cute.
Terrifying and dangerous.
Yeah.
It could dig under the bed. It could break it.
A pucker toe moccasin, because as you can see, the toe is full of puckers. That's basically to deal with the thread, a needle, a very simple awl. This is a native trade awl. So basically what you've got is a lightning bolt shaped piece of metal jammed into a hunk of wood. This is a piece of dowel rod with a point on the end that I can use to poke holes through the leather. A lot of those guys do. I used to live in upstate New York, and that's full of reservations. All the old Iroquois reservations are up that way. But they don't sound like the guys out of accent.
I don't believe we saw, I don't remember sheep down here.